Welcome to Brain Health Besties, a human-forward podcast for those of us who want to feel better but don't know where to start. I'm Bailey, a licensed professional counselor.
And I'm Nia, a qualified mental health professional.
And I'm Shelby, a human.
We are so glad you're here. And we believe that you deserve to know how your brain works and how to nurture it, even when self-care feels a little challenging.
We focus on kindness to ourselves and recognizing our own needs with as little guilt as possible because your brain deserves a bestie.
Oh, there's stars in my eyes. I can't see which way is right. But oh, if there's one thing that I know, it's only up from here, 'cause there's no...
Hey besties, welcome to our Learning Together episode, The Power of Connection. So, I think we should start with just checking in with ourselves, if that's okay. So the question is, how are you guys doing?
Yeah. I'm okay, I think. On our 0 to 5 scale, I'm probably like a 1.25. I'm always a little anxious when we are doing these podcast recordings. I think that's a pretty normal experience when a camera's pointed at you. But it's also Friday. It's the weekend, and I'm excited to see what the weekend brings. So I think a 1.25 today.
Love it. Thanks.
Yeah. I am at about a 1.5, I think, which is usually around my norm.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not completely calm and at peace, but it's pretty close to my baseline. So that's pretty average for me.
Love that. And I think I'm sticking with a 1.
Mm.
I think I used to always say kind of like that 0,
Mm-hmm.
but then I'm reminded that I know when I'm at a 0, and that's after I've been outside in the mountains or something like that. So I think just with a big weekend coming up, a fun one, but I think a 1 for me.
Okay.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about how, not just the self-assessment, but how that might link to connection and why we keep getting the reps in all of these practices.
I love that. Getting the reps in, right? We're saying the word practice, but that's what we mean.
Yeah.
You know, all of these things that we're sharing do take practice, not just one time or 2 times. We have to figure out kind of if they work for us or when they work for us best. So the idea of connection is that we need it. We need it. I think we'll talk a little bit about that connection to ourselves as well as connection to others. So the connection to ourselves is getting to know what we need, when we need it, even being able to define those feelings. We put numbers to them. We just did that. We put numbers to it, but also putting some language to it.
Yeah.
So connection is important. We as humans are built for it. We all know someone who has, really enjoys their alone time as well.
That would be me.
Oh, fantastic. And me too. I love alone time as well. But our brains really thrive when we have that healthy connection. We're feeling like we are seen and heard. We're connecting with others. Maybe we share things in common. So that's kind of what we're talking about today, is all the different ways that connection can be beneficial to us.
Yeah.
Even for those of us that are self-defined loners. And there is some science behind that, right?
Yeah, for sure. So the cool thing is we are biologically, our brains are wired for connection. And that goes back to the most basic survival, right? And we talked a little bit about this in that self-assessment episode when we talked about survival brains. But the truth is, we have never been the fastest. We've never been the strongest predator. We've never been the biggest. And so we've always needed other humans to survive. Yeah. And although in today's day and age, you technically probably could survive without ever coming in contact with another human. Through, like, we can order our groceries and have them dropped off. We can order food. We can do all of these specific things without ever coming or seeing another person's face. The question is how good is that for our brains when we are wired for that connection? And are we living to our fullest potential and our best selves if we are not in connection with other humans? I think this leads me to a study that comes out of Harvard, and it is the longest ongoing study on human happiness that they have out there, and has been going on since, I believe it's the 40s. But what they're finding is over these decades of following the same people, trying to figure out what helps humans feel happy or satisfied with life. And what the data shows resoundingly across humans, no matter whether we are very affluent people, no matter what kind of jobs we're in, no matter what our socioeconomic status is, the core thing for happiness is connection, deep connection with other human beings. So it's not necessarily how many things we have, where we live, what house we're in, what job or title we own, what success is, however we deem success is defined for us. It's the depth of our human connections with each other. And happiness is one of those that I sometimes struggle with a measure of happiness because it is a feeling and it's not meant to be around forever. I think for me, the more digestible word is probably satisfaction or enjoyment of life. But everybody probably has different thoughts on.
Yeah. And I'm curious about that, Bailey, because I think sometimes we feel like to be connected, well, I have to know a lot of people and I have to talk to a lot of people. And like personally, that makes me go, ugh. I love people and I people a lot in my job and the day to day. And that is emotionally exhausting for me.
Yeah.
But there are those people that I am deeply connected to, my best friends, my family, that are those people that just give me that like a sigh of relief, even just being in their presence.
Yeah. And I think we probably each have an example of somebody that we cannot even exchange words. And I can just be in the room with that person and automatically feel safe, feel at ease, feel comfortable and in a better state. I'm guessing that each of you at least have one person that way too.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. So it's not necessarily quantity of connection, but that deep quality of connection.
And the tricky piece about that is those deep connections take work. You know, relationships, again, are muscles just like anything else where we have to work at them. We have to make efforts to connect and engage with our people. And sometimes that can feel overwhelming. Like I'm in a phase of life personally where going out on a weekday to hang out with friends is really, really hard to find that time or to have the emotional energy to do so. Because even if there's not a billion things going on after work, there are days we people all day, every day at work. And I just need the emotional recharge of not peopling. So it can be really hard. And we sometimes think that those deep connections have to come out of these large periods of times, but that's not true. What else are we finding out, Nia, about the short bursts?
Well, I think there really are short bursts. You know, I'm an outgoing person. I don't know if you guys knew that. But,
News to me.
For me, it's easy to kind of strike up a conversation with the pharmacist, with the person at the grocery store, with the favorite grocery store I go to. It's easy for me to even strike up a conversation about the brownie I was buying or ask them how their day was. And I really do find a little bit of a little more lightweightness to my day. You know, I remember having a conversation with somebody I don't know, you know, at the grocery store, but walking to my car, just being like, well, that was nice. You know, it really gave me a little bit of extra burst to my day. So just those little tiny micro times too, just wherever you could do it can really add to your time too.
Yeah. And that makes me think of a study that came out of Chicago by Epley and Schroeder. In 2014-ish, they started this series of research studies where they asked people who on the commuter train in Chicago, the L, to be in two different groups. One where they enjoyed their solitude in their commute. Their only directive was not to make contact with anybody else. That was it.
Okay.
And then the other group was asked to engage in social connection with other people. And so the first round of study, they did this. They asked people how their happiness level at the beginning and then asked their happiness level at the end. And people said overwhelmingly that they were more happy with having the conversation with a stranger on the train, which is usually when we're commuting, that's the time we are not engaging with people.
Headphones in, book out,
yes.
don't speak to me.
Not engaging. But what they found is those people were happier, and the people who were in solitude reported either the same amount or even less happiness. And so then they got all this feedback that was like, yeah, but I'm a loner. I'm somebody who enjoys my solitude and my time. And then so they dug into that and the prediction of, or people saying, for me, I'm different. I'm not extroverted. I'm not outgoing. That would be highly uncomfortable and awkward to the point where it'd almost be painful. And so they were predicting that it would be super uncomfortable. And so they said, okay, we see you. And they did a follow-up research study. And what they found was not only did those same people still enjoy themselves more, they predicted that it was going to be far more uncomfortable than what it actually ended up being, what they said was the reality at the end. And they also had more meaningful connection and reported higher levels of satisfaction and happiness at the end. And so sometimes our brains tell us, oh, if I talk to that person in the grocery store, it's going to be super awkward and I'm not going to know what to say. And then I'm going to look dumb. And then I'm going to be like shaming myself all over the place. And that may be true. However, our brains over predict how uncomfortable and awful that's going to be. And we actually get a little more enjoyment from those human connections. And besties, if that feels like a lot in this moment to take on, to be talking to strangers at the grocery store or on your commuter train, there are other ways we can go about deepening and intentionally connecting with our already established connections too. If we're not quite at that point where like, let's have a conversation in the grocery store.
It's all about that intentional connection, whether that is with the people we love or a stranger on a train.
Yeah. And I think that's just a really valuable thing, that it doesn't have to be these big moments. And then also, if we're not quite ready for I'm talking and chatting up strangers, we don't have to go there quite yet. We can really first focus in on the people that we're close to.
Yeah.
Cool.
I love that.
Yeah. And I think that makes me think of a question I have for you, because I am very much a self-defined introvert. I can be extroverted at work and I people a lot at work. However, if I choose between a large group and alone time, I'm going to choose alone time every time. But is there a time that you have challenged yourself to attend an event or speak to somebody or do something you didn't necessarily want to do that ended up being like, wow, that was actually really great?
Yeah, I have one. We get to do some large events at work, of course, and some of them are a little bit later at night. So it's not necessarily that I didn't want to go. But what I did was reminded myself of the times that we've had these before and just that the love really that we got.
The amount of hugs.
Some of the hugs. I say 75 and I'm not kidding about that. I got a lot of hugs. But just I think for me, the way I helped myself was bringing back that memory and bringing back what I saw in others, the other people that we were going to support with their smiles and the laughter and all the things that they were talking about that they enjoyed, because we did go to be able to put on that event. So yeah.
And there have been several times in social situations where like, I don't really want to go, but I do anyway. I'm actually take this in kind of a different direction though. Rather than it being like, oh, I don't want to do this. There's often times like when I think about my people that I am thinking about them or thinking about, oh, I really want to connect with them, and then just don't either through, it's not that I don't want to. It's just like, oh, I'll text them after this, or I really should call them so we can get coffee or do these things. Right. And how many opportunities I miss just deeply connecting with my people or even just connecting. It doesn't even always have to be deeply connecting with my people because my brain gets in the way. I'm like, oh, I'll do that later. Or I thought about them, but they don't really need to hear that. Or I'll tell them that thing later. Or they know I care about them.
Falling into that. Or even that, like the same thing as we think with strangers, like, oh, it's going to be really awkward. Or it's going to be weird. I can even fall into that trap with the people I love. Like, oh, it's going to be really weird if I just send them a text message that's like, hey, I've been thinking about you. Even though that's like, it's normal. But it's still, my brain tells me, oh, it's going to be weird. But then it's not.
And I am finding, that. And I get that, or I used to have that quite often. However, my empirical data has taught me something very different. When I've reached out to somebody and just said, hey, kind of been on my heart, or I've been thinking about you, crossed my mind today, or I just remembered that time that we went and did this thing and I laughed out loud and just wanted to share that with you. And these things are usually in text message.
Yep.
Never one time have I ever received a message back that was discouraging or like, why are you sending this to me? Or that was weird. Why did you say that? It's always an opportunity, an invitation for connection. And then always, in my experience, it is reciprocated either immediately or down the road where somebody is like, oh my gosh, that was the funniest thing. Now I'm laughing out loud. Or even that bit of, I really needed that today. And I don't know how you knew that, but you knew it. And thanks for reaching out. And you get that double dopamine. So we talked a little bit about dopamine before. It is that chemical in our brain that gets released that helps motivate us and keep us moving forward. We lovingly call it hopamine. It's the thing that creates hope in us. And when we connect intentionally with somebody, whether it be one of our besties or it is a stranger on the train or in the grocery store, it creates dopamine for us. It creates dopamine for the person receiving it. And there's a little sneaky trifecta where if somebody else witnesses it, say you're in a group text or somebody in the grocery store watches you connect with another human, they also get dopamine and they're not even associated with it. Yeah. So it's really just this, one of the most powerful tools we have for resiliency and for wellness and for our brains is intentionally connecting.
Yeah. And it's that intentional piece, that practice of doing it over and over and over again. It kind of helps us build that muscle memory.
Yeah. And we're going to get that it can feel overwhelming to know where to start with those things. And so when we get into the practice in the next episode, we'll talk specifically about maybe some tangible ways that we can connect with our people that feel meaningful, that maybe don't feel so scary, so that we can get looped in and start taking those extra steps to really just say, hey, I've been thinking about you. I hope you're doing well. Or do you remember that time when? Or I saw your update on this social media platform and oh my gosh, that's amazing. Congratulations. And it's moving past that, just the passive like or heart on social media, but a comment or then following up with an intentional message or call or anything like that.
Very cool. I did that social media piece kind of sparked something for me. Arguably, we are the most connected that we have ever been. However, a lot of it is that passive connection. So it is kind of diving deeper into intentionally connecting with each other. And I'm curious how you all are doing that in this world where we are so connected, and yet some of those means of connection are not as intentional and as deep.
Yeah.
Well, and so I think about this can go a lot of different ways. Our brains love the likes, and they love the hearts. They love it is not just for giving, but also for receiving. And many, many people look at that and feel a lot of satisfaction or dopamine in that brief dopamine in that like, oh, I've got this many likes or this many hearts or this many comments. And what we also know is that is kind of a passive way and less intentional. Like even if it is my best friend, and he posts something on social media and I like it and keep scrolling, that is not an intentional connection. I'm not saying, ooh, you were on my mind and I'm reaching out. Our weekly phone calls or our weekly chats, those are intentional connections. And so we may get brief amounts of that dopamine just from doing a like or receiving a like. But it's really not that intentional piece of deepening a relationship or deepening connection that tends to last a little bit longer.
I think of growing up with actually handwriting, like thank you letters. I did it when people came to my birthday party and you'd write a handwritten letter afterwards. And I don't know that there's a lot of that anymore. I get to support some youth age, some college age students during the summertime. And one of the people that I had on my team was using her skill that her mother had taught her. And she did so beautifully handwriting. Not only was the handwriting lovely, but what she was saying was lovely. And she wrote 25 handwritten letters to the people that we had at the conference. And she, even though she said, I said, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And then when seeing the people receive these, and I even had a chance, her mother she actually came to the conference for just a little bit to visit. And I even had the chance to tell the mother, wow,
Yeah.
So there it is, that dopamine going and going and going. But the other ways are smaller than that, but I think the challenge is that intentionality, like we keep on saying, when we think of that person, could we just pick up, a lot of us have a phone that you can just get right in there and send a quick text. And handwriting letters is great too.
Yep.
I think
there's something special about a handwritten letter.
There is, for sure. And I think that for me, like what you're talking about with either the handwritten or the message, there's a couple things that happen in my brain. First, my brain is like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to say. Like, what do I have to say that would be meaningful? And then when it happens, it feels much better. One of the coolest things about coming and joining the Be Well Initiatives team when I did is we don't just tell people what to do, but we actually do the practice in conjunction and with each other and in community. And one of the most impactful first experiences I had on the Be Well team was taking 2 minutes to intentionally just send messages to people. Because oftentimes we think about the things like, Shelby, I am so grateful for all of your help in keeping things organized and making sure we show up in this way, or that even just as simple as grabbing the things off the printer for us as we're walking in. Oftentimes we think those things in our brains and don't say them. But all of a sudden there was this invitation to practice in real time. And even though we were leading and teaching these things, I'm sending messages to coworkers or friends and just saying, hey, I am so grateful, Nia, that we are on the same team together. You bring so much joy and light and positivity to this space. And I'm just so thankful for you and everything that you present and bring here. That is different and it hits differently. And then like we've been talking about, what happens is then Nia responds and then it's all goofy smiles from there.
Well, and that response may not be immediate too, right? Because if it's a text, I receive yours, but I was leading the presentation. So then it comes a little bit later, maybe when you're not expecting it. And again, that dopamine, and we both get that.
It's just ongoing.
And it's just the intentionality in the practice.
All right, friends, I am excited to jump into this practice.
Yeah, me too.
If you join us on our next episode, our Be Well moment, we will dive into the actual practice of intentional connection. Thank you for being here with us today. Until next time, be well, besties.
If you enjoyed this episode, like and subscribe to Brain Health Besties so you can find us in the future.
And since sharing is kind, share us with your besties.
If you have mental health or wellness topics you'd like us to chat about, please reach out to bewell@livebrightly.org.
Until next time, be well, besties.
Shining brighter than the sun. I'm